Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. We are going to start at 4, so we will wait for some more participants to join, and then we are going to start. Let's wait a few minutes. And let's just wait a few minutes for others to join. We are going to start maybe in 2 or 3 minutes. Now I can see 10 participants. Thank you very much for showing the interest in this session. We are going to discuss about the news in journalism. Let's just give some more minutes for others to join before we start. I can see the number of participants is growing. All right, I see it's already 4:01, so maybe I will start now. So welcome in this workshop and in this session that will be conducted by me. I am Dr. Viola Gilbegay, and I'm an assistant professor of mass communication at Abu Dhabi University. In this session, I'm going to share with you my knowledge of the news in journalism. So I teach mass communication in Abu Dhabi University, and I hope that by talking about the news in journalism and about journalism in general, you will be attracted to continue to study and study mass communication at Abu Dhabi University. So I really hope to see you in the next fall. All right, so the news in journalism. What we are going to see in this session are these points. So we are going to see, we will talk about the news in specific. So what is news? The definition of the news. Then we are going to talk about the criteria of the news. So how the journalists select and choose some news and not other news. So based on what? Then we are going to discuss about how the journalists get the news. And at the end, we will talk about the lead. The lead is the first paragraph of every article. No, when you read the newspaper and you see the article, then we know that more than 80% of the people, they are going to read the lead paragraph, which is the first paragraph of the article. So we are going to discuss here also at the end how to write this an effective lead. So I'll show you some examples, and then at the end you are going to have a short exercise. I'll give you the information of a news, and then I will ask from you to write for me the lead paragraph, right? So we can start with the first point, which is what is news? Okay, so life appears to be a shapeless jumble of events. Every day happens so many things around us. Here in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, in Sharjah, no, in the UAE, but also all around the world. There are very important things that are happening, and they can be thousands of things happening. Of course, then the journalists cannot write about all the things that are happening. So they have to choose. And when they are going to choose, we are going to discuss about it. They have to structure all this chaos, no? So that the public will receive this news that they are going to have it at the beginning. They will create a package into stories, and then they are going to share it with the public. So the same day it will be on the radio and on the TV, and then usually the next day will be seen or as an article in the newspaper. Why the next day in the newspaper? Because usually the newspaper needs more details. That's why the journalist needs to prepare more, to write more, collect more information, to have that package, now to create that package in the best way for the reader to understand exactly what happened in that event. So how do the journalists, first of all, decide what is news and what is not news? How do they distinguish between a very big news story and a very small news story? The answer is that they will do it exactly the same way as everybody else, also us. So everybody will make some judgment whenever they decide to talk about one event rather than another. And also I'm going to ask you a question about this. So let me see in the next slide. This is the question. In order to participate and to answer this question, you need to go and with your mobile, you need to go to ahaslides.com and write this code. So this is the way how we judge things that are happening around us. So which do you think is more interesting? Do you think it's more interesting a girl going to a primary school, a girl going to the high school, or a girl going to a university? What do you think? Which is more important or interesting from these three that can be news? From these three news, which is the more interesting? What do you think? Can you go in this ahaslides.com and write the code and put your answer and select one of these that you think is the more interesting news? I see one already answered. Can I have some more participants so then I can share the correct answer? What do you think? Which is more interesting? We are talking about how the journalists choose the news, right? How they select the news. All right, so one person is saying a girl going to high school. Another one, what do you think? Which is more interesting? Okay, another one, a girl going to university. Some more, please, some more answers, so then I can share with you the correct one. Because I have one and one. I need something that is more, so we can see then the result. All right, we already have here for the third, the third interesting, let's say, news that has more votes than the other. Okay, maybe you need some time to join to that website. All right, okay, so the correct answer, maybe I can share it. You see, now we have more votes. Okay, I will have also some other question related to this. So please stay in the same website, so don't leave it. Okay, so I have, okay, correct answer, of course, girl going to the university, right? So this is the judgment that we have, and we are normal people. And the journalists, they do the same thing, no, exactly the same thing. They will decide which is news and which is not, or which is a big news and which one is a small news based on the judgment like everyone else, no? They will make the judgment as you did right now, no? You choose that thing that is a little bit more rare, no? So it's very common for a girl to go to primary school or to any, for any person. It's common also to go to the high school, but it's more rare for people to go at the university. So a girl going to university is something more rare, more unusual, let's say. That's why this will be news and not the other one, right? So this is how we made the judgment. Let's see now another question related to the same. Now, which one do you think is more interesting? A man aged 25 marrying a girl aged 20, or a man aged 55 marrying a girl aged 15? I see that you are already in the website, so you can answer faster this time. Which is more interesting? What do you think, or which one do you think that the journalists are going to choose as news? Right, so I see 3 votes for the answer, a man age 55 marrying a girl age 15, and 2 answer for the other one, a man age 25 marrying a girl age 20. Let me show you, is there anyone else that wants to answer? It's not a difficult question, right? But this is it's an easy way to understand how the journalists, they judge or they decide, they select the news. Let me show you the correct answer. Of course, a man age 55 marrying a girl age 15. Why? Because it's something rare. No, it doesn't happen every day. It's something that we don't see it so often in the reality, in our reality. While a man aged 25 marrying a girl aged 20 is more common, of course, right? Okay, so let me show you another question that is again related to that. This will be the last question. Which do you think is more interesting in this case? A car killing a chicken, a car killing a pig, or a car killing a child? What do you think? Which is more interesting? Which one do you think the journalists are going to select it as news? Oh, I see now you are faster, but please, I would like to have more participants. Okay, I see that you are having also answers for the others. Okay, that is good. But you can understand, no? So the majority again are selecting the correct answer. So car killing a child, of course, it can be news. We are going to see it also. A car killing a chicken or killing a pig can be also news for the society, that whatever it is, that society. So we will discuss about that. But from these 3, if the journalist is going to select which is more important, and if they don't have any space for the other 2, they have to select only one, then of course they are going to choose a car killing a child, right? So they will choose this option because that is, you imagine that when a car is killing a child, is a human being, and all people now will be affected. The human being will be more affected from this news than to read the news that a car has killed a chicken or killed another animal like a pig, a cow, or whatever other animal. So you understand that this judgment, like the journalists, they do the same judgment like us. Now, let's continue. All right, so every one of these events might be news. I've noticed that some of you selected the other options. Might be news for the community in which it happens, but some are more newsworthy than others. And as journalists, since we don't have enough space in the newspaper, we don't have enough time, on TV or the radio to talk about, for 24 hours about all the events that are happening around us. We don't have all this time, we don't have all this space, so they are going to select. So they are going to choose which is more newsworthy than other news. The same event can have different levels of interest in different societies and will be talked about it in different ways. If, for example, we have a farm wall has collapsed, maybe killing a cow or killing a pig, which is more important? Here we don't have a child, we have two animals, the cow or the pig. Maybe both of them are important, but the answer will vary, will be different, the answer from one society to another, depending upon the relative importance of the cow or the pig. If we are living in a society where the cow has more importance than the pig, in that society, the journalist is going to choose the story about the cow. If it's the opposite, then the journalist is going to choose the story about the pig, right? So this is the reason why when you open a newspaper, for example, in the UAE, you find certain news. When you open the newspaper, let's say in another country, in France, in Germany, in Canada, you are going to see different kind of news. So we don't see the same news, right? This is the reason why, because for some societies, some things are more important and more interesting than other things. The way in which the news is judged, though, is the same everywhere. So we saw the example when I asked you the question, when we are judging the news, then of course we are going to have the same judgment. So the human being will have those same judgment. Now, I will show you a lot of examples for you to understand. And in order to understand this fact of how they are judged, the news, we have to discuss about the second point of our session, which is the criteria of the news. These are very famous. So all the journalists and these are being studied in all the schools of journalism, the criteria of the news. So the way how the news are judged by the journalists or selected by the journalists. Based on this criteria, and there are 5, or as you see here, sometimes they are considered to be 4 because one of them or 2 of them, they look like very similar. So this criteria of the news are, is it new? So the news should be new. Is it unusual? Now remember when I asked you those questions, there were some news that were more unusual than others. So that is one criteria. Another criteria, is it interesting? Can be interesting, but maybe it's not for the general interest. And then we go to the other criteria, is it significant? Then the last criteria, which is also very, very important criteria, is it about people? So all the news should be on the perspective of how people are affected from that event or from that news. All right, so let's see the first criteria with some example. Is it new? The first criteria. If it's not new, cannot be news. You see it from the word itself, no? It's news. So for sure should be something that is new. Even we always say, like I always say in my courses, then when we talk about something, news in the newspaper, something that happened the day before or 2 days ago, it's not news anymore, no? I cannot write it about it today because it's already old. Nowadays, especially when we are sharing the news and when the journalists, they use online, so the websites, the deadline, it's even no shorter. So something that can happen in the morning and you are writing about it now that is afternoon, it's already something old because maybe at that time in the morning, other websites, other journalists already wrote about it. So now it's already something that now old. So with the digital is becoming more, the deadline is becoming a problem for all the journalists, not leaving them a space now that they need time to write the news. They need time to collect those informations now in order to create those packages, to create those stories and to share the complete information to the readers or viewers. But that is another problem as well. Anyway, here we discuss about the first criteria of the news, which should be new, something that happens now. So if it's not new, it cannot be news. We have here an example. Let's say an assassination of Mrs. Gandhi is something that maybe happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago. can have the other criteria. So it is maybe something unusual because assassination, it's not something that happens every day. It is interesting, it is significant, and it's about people because it's about Mrs. Gandhi, so a person that was killed. But we miss the first criteria, which is if it's new, right? So it cannot possibly be reported in the tomorrow papers because it's not something new. If we have an old news, but we have a new information about this old news, then that will be the news. So the new information that you have discovered about this old news will be the actual news. So if some facts about that assassination became known for the first time now, that would be news. So when the journalist is going to present this news on the newspaper, on the radio or TV, they are not going to start with this, we have the assassination or something happened, no, the assassination of Mrs. Gandhi, but they are going to see the actually that new information that they have gotten. Like, for example, if the new information is that now they know the name of the killer, then they are going to start with it. So they will share this information. That will be the news, right? So the new information will be the news. This is the first criteria. Now, let's talk about the second criteria of the news, which is it unusual? So something can be new, but in order to be selected as news, should be also something that doesn't happen every day. No, it's something unusual. We have this nice actually expression in journalism that all the journalists now are aware of it, of all the countries in the world. Dog bites man is not news, but man bites dog, that is news. So what does it mean? That dog bites man, no, it's something that can happen. It's completely something normal, no, it happens. But that the man can bite the dog, that is something, no, more rare. So it's unusual thing. So things are happening all the time, but not all of them are news, even if they are new. So if we have the first criteria that they are new, we have to check what about the second criteria, that thing is happening, that event is something unusual. For example, if we have a man, this man, he wakes up every day, he eats his breakfast, he goes to work, now he takes a bus to go to work. This is something completely normal, right? Why this will be something unusual? Cannot be. So what happens? This is something, so we said it's something that happens every day. But if we have the information that this man that is doing this thing every day, he is 90 years old, so he is still going to catch the bus and working every day, this is something unusual. It has the criteria of being now something unusual. So this news will be reported. So if you think about it, if you are not so, no, you don't have too much knowledge about journalism, but if you think about it, how many news you have read, no, of this, about this kind of stories, this unusual stories, something that is usual or something that is normal, that you see it every day, it's not news. It will not be reported, no, in the newspaper or radio or TV, no, in the media. Now, let's see the third criteria. The third criteria, is it interesting? Is it interesting? The news can be new, can be, as we said, no, unusual, but should be also interesting. Interesting meaning that should have the interest of everyone, the general interest. When the journalists are writing on the newspaper or radio or TV, these media are considered mass media, which means that like the audience that we have, so as people that are buying those newspaper, people that are listening to that radio, to the news or the TV, they are normal people. It's everyone, so everyone can read that newspaper. So this news should be interesting for the general, for all these people that are normal people, can be of different ages, different level of education, different interests. This news should be interesting for all of them. Now, events which are new and unusual may still not be of the general interest. So that's why here we come to the role of the journalist that is going to select. He is going to select the news. So for example, scientists, they may report that an insect has just been found living on a plant which it did not previously inhabit. This discovery is new, so it has a criteria of being new, of this event is unusual, but it's not of the interest for the general, for the people, for the normal people. This has the interest of the specialist. So this kind of news, maybe in the newspaper, you are going to see it in a very short news, something 2 sentences, no, something like that. This kind of news is in for a specific journal, no, so for those journals that are for a specialist publication, not for newspaper, not for radio or TV, no, so they are mass media for the mass, so for everyone. Now, let's see the other criteria. Is it significant? If it's significant, people may not be interested in bugs, as we saw it in the previous criteria, but they are interested in food. So we imagine now if we have the same news, but this insect is now threatening the crops, that means food. Now, in this case, that will be, it's something significant. This is for the general interest, no? For everyone, they will be interested to know. It's a matter of concern for everyone. So this news will be significant. So we'll have the criteria of being new, if it is something new, of being unusual, of being interesting, of being significant, and also the other, let's say, the other criteria that is about people. So for the people, because of course the crops, it's food, and that is for the people. And so if they are threatened, then all people will be affected from this. So it will have all these 5 criteria. So it will be a news that will be selected by the journalist. Now let's see the last criteria, and we will see here also another example. Is it about people? Is it about people? Is the other criteria. So most news is automatically about people, because it is the things that people do to change the world which actually makes news. However, news can also be made by non-human sources, such, for example, a cyclone, a fire, a volcanic eruption, or even an earthquake. So it is when reporting the stories that it's important to make sure that the story is centered on people. So we are not going to report a volcanic eruption or an earthquake when no one is being affected, because actually these things happens in the ocean, no, in the desert. It can happen maybe a cyclone, a fire, no, can happen in the open, no, atmosphere, can happen in the sky. And you are not going to see these things reported on the news. You are going to see these things reported on the news if people are affected, if we have people that lost their houses, or people that died because of these events, because of this non-human sources, let's say. So cyclone, the fire, volcanic eruption, or hurricane, no, or earthquake. So the cyclone would not matter if it blew itself out in the middle of a Pacific Ocean, away from any inhabited islands. The fire could burn for as long as it likes in the bush where nobody lives. A volcanic eruption or an earthquake which damages nobody's property and injures nobody, it's not news. So you are not going to see it reported. They happen all the time and you don't see them. So you don't know that they happened because you don't read them on the news and you don't see them, no, reported on TV or radio. So all this natural disaster only become news when they affect people's life. Every story can be told in terms of people. Always start by asking yourself this question: how does this affect to my readers, listeners, or the viewer lives? So when the journalist is going to select the news, he is going to think about it. How this news that I'm going to write is going to affect my readers or my listeners or my viewers' lives. And that will give you then the answer that will give you then the answer of should I report it, should I write about it or not. So if people are not affected or being affected by this news, then that is not a big news. It's something small. It's not relevant for the people's life. All right, so let's continue. So these were the criteria, no, the 5 criteria. Whenever you have a story which tells of how something has happened, and we said that should affect, which affect both people and property. Remember that I said that case, then if we have, for example, an earthquake, no, and then we have loss of lives or property, no, houses destroyed. When we have both of these cases, so we have lives of people destroyed or loss of their life, and the property also destroyed, then what we are going to see that in the lead paragraph, so in the first paragraph, we are going to start with the people, because that is the news, how people were affected, not the property. So for example, here we have the right version and the wrong version. I'll start by reading the wrong version. So if we have this news, 17 houses were flattened when Cyclone Victor struck Suva yesterday. Now we have this news that 17 houses were flattened. That means no, destroyed. And this is the news, but in these houses, people were living, right? So it's wrong to write it this way because the property is not that important than life. So if we write it, we have to write it this way. More than 100 people were left homeless after Cyclone Victor struck Suva yesterday. So now you understand, if you, let's say you are a normal reader, you are not a journalist. If you read these two parts, not these two stories, which is more important for you? It's the same story, it's the same news. It's only written in a different way because the journalist had thought that I have to share the most important thing, what can affect people, not what happened to the house, to the property. So that is much better way of writing the news than in the second version of the 17 houses that were flattened. But it's the same news, but mostly seen on the perspective of what happened to people. So 100 people left homeless. Let's see now. Okay, so these were the 5 criteria of the news. So I hope that it is clear the first part of what is news and the second part of the criteria of the news. I see here you are writing also on the chat. So please ask your questions on the chat. Maybe after we are going to finish, so all the slides, then I will also see and answer your questions. So if you have any problem, any question, something that you didn't understand, please write it down and there is in the chat. Or also you can raise your hand and then you'll be unmuted and you can share your question or your comment. All right, so now we are to the other part, so to the third part of our presentation, which is how strong is the story. So we now know what is news, so something that is new, something that is true, and also we saw how to select the news, so how the journalists select the news, if it is big story or if it is a small story, and then we saw the criteria of the news. So if, of course, this news that you are selected, it has all these 5 criteria, that is a very good news, right? But now we are going to see there are also some other things that can help us. How strong is a story? So if we have these 5 criteria, can be, of course, a very good news, a very good story. So story which is new, is unusual, it's interesting, it's significant, and it's about people, is going to be a very good story, right? One way of deciding the strength of the story is also to check how many of those 5 criteria it meets. So once we have checked, then we are going to see that we have in addition other factors that can tell to the journalist if that story is a strong one, it's newsworthy, or if it is a small one or weak story. Let's see some examples now. Closeness. Closeness can tell us if that story is strong or not. For example, the same event happening in 2 different places can have 2 quite different news value. Let's say if we have or something happens here in the UAE, like an earthquake in the UAE, an earthquake in Bahrain or in Oman, right? So which one do you think that will be reported? We have the same event. So we have earthquake here, earthquake also there. Now, based on this closeness, then you are going to understand that the journalist is not going to report the the earthquake in Oman or in Bahrain. They are going to report the earthquake that is happening in the UAE, because this closeness, of course, people that are closer to that that news, or where that news is located and where that news happened, of course, they are more connected to it and they are more interested to know about it. So the appeal of local news is that your readers or listeners might know the place or the place or people or the place that are involved. So things that are happening here, they are more important than things that are happening in another country, even though it's the same news. So, but based on this uh, closeness, then you are going to see it in the newspaper, the news mostly that are focused here in the UAE, that will be chosen first, let's say. Now, let's see another thing that can tell to the journalist if that news is strong or it's weak. We have the personal impact. Personal impact. What does that mean? That many things happen not during the year. The average reader or our listener or the viewer, if we are working in TV or radio or newspaper, may be a parent, no, the reader or the viewer, he may be a parent, he may be a person that has specific wishes, like wanted a good education for the children, or dreaming to buy a house, to buy a car, looking forward to go home on leave, no, to travel, anticipating the next big community feast or festival. So these are wishes, no, that you know that are happening in your society. So that's why you will need to have a clear understanding of what your readers like and what your readers wants to know from the news. So this story, so if you have the information that during that month or during that, yeah, during those months, let's say, or in 1 month only, if there are a lot of weddings, then you will see that in the newspapers you are going to see a lot of articles showing no this articles with this topic about the bride price, or let's say at the beginning of the academic year when they know that no the journalists know that parents they have to decide and choose the schools for their children, so you are going to see a lot of articles about new schools, about the fees no of the schools and which one to choose. So, or whatever else that is important. Then, for example, just now in April, it will come now in the UAE, the Ramadan, it will start Ramadan. So you are going to see it as it happens every year. You will see a lot of articles from the news about Ramadan, no, how to know how to, let's say, to fast, or what to eat and what to drink, no, in order to not be so difficult now for the people to fast for all the months. So you will see a lot of stories related to it. Why? Because the journalists they know that these things are happening in my society, and there are a lot of people interested in knowing what to do, how to do it, right? So these are or this is a kind of stories that you see it often, no, that shows the personal impact of the reader or the listener or the viewer. So these stories are very common. So people can identify with the stories about other people like themselves. So those stories with which many people can identify are stronger than those which only apply to few people. So that is also very important. Now, the other part is how do the journalists get the news? So how the journalists they get the news? Where do they find the news? There are so many different ways. Maybe you think that maybe some of you may think that the journalist is all the time in the office, all the time looking for or waiting for the news to come to him. Sometimes this happens, but most of the time they will be out of the office looking for the news, not finding the news by themselves. So we will see, or we can have both of these things. We have the journalist that stay in the office and he will receive a lot of things from companies, from government. So for example, government handouts, announcement from the governments of new developments, new a new bridge, a new street, a new mosque, no, a new building or whatever, and or from all the companies, the PRs, the public relation officers, they are going to send a lot of press releases to the journalists about their events, about their company. So this is one of the ways of how the journalists receive the news. So he will wait for all of this, the government, the handouts or announcement or these press releases, and is going to select and see which is the most important news, which are the most important news, maybe some of them, and he's going to create that story, let's say, to make the package that we mentioned at the beginning with all the relevant information and the way for the reader to understand what is happening, because maybe the government is going to send that, we have approved this law, and he will send the law to the journalist, but the journalist is not going to publish that law exactly as it is. He is going to understand it, he's going to translate it, let's say, even if it's in the same language, but make it easy for the readers to understand what is happening, what is that law about. So this is the idea. So this is one of the ways how the journalists receive the news. Now, let's see other ways. There is also news with the journalists find for themselves. So they have to go out of the office and they then will reveal to the public. It's the job of the journalist to report also these stories, right? Let's see all. So where does the news come from? Here we have a lot of different areas, the main areas of the life in which we expect frequently to find the news stories. Now we are going to see to talk or discuss about each of this main area. For example, the conflict. Any story that shows some conflict, important conflict, that will be news. So for example, if there is a war, right? If there is an election, if there is power battles of politics, then of course this will be important news. So they will be reported because we are talking about conflict. So especially when we have debates, there we have two sides, these things, and they are in the news. So these things will be reported in the news for sure, because they complete those 5 criteria that we mentioned about. So conflict is something, in this area you find a lot of different news. They will be reported for sure. Then another one is disaster and tragedy. All these stories that happens, for example, air crashes, you see here on the slides, train crashes or ship sinking, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, those tragedies that we mentioned, that happens, they may happen around us. So these are very, let's say, in journalism, it's bad to say it, but in journalism, they say that the bad news is actually good news, meaning that it's a strong news, not that it's good, that is, everyone is happy about it, but they are strong news. That is the idea. So this kind of stories that includes air crashes, train crashes, ship sinking, volcanic eruption, all these tragedies that we have, then those will be good news, let's say strong news in the meaning of the strong news, for the journalist to share it, to create that package, to create that story and share it with the readers or listeners or viewers. So that is an important actually area where the journalists find the stories. Now another one, and actually this area here, this field, we see it a lot in the news in the UAE, which is progress and development. Development is always news in a developing country or even developed country. The report should be always of how the changes can affect people's lives, for better or for worse. Development stories, they may include education, they may include development of new technology or improvement of farming techniques or old building or bridges. I see in the news here in the UAE a lot of stories from this field, right? You have always a new mall, you have always a new bridge, you have a new road, and the news about the train that will connect Dubai and Abu Dhabi is being shared since a long time. So no, they are working about it on it, no, for some time. So that will be amazing, no, if that news will come out and that will be reality, right? So imagine how many things that will change. It will change, no, after that, no, after the train that will connect the two Emirates. So that will be a very great, no, a very big news. So this news, when the journalist is going to report this kind of news, always he has to think of not to report that news by itself, no, that we have a new road or a new a story about improvement of farming techniques, etc. But they are going to report it of how, again, now we mentioned that before, of how this will affect people. So how this thing will change people's life, right? So this is the main purpose, because the journalists are talking or they are writing for the readers, so for people. They also need to share these things for the people, like from their perspective, how it will affect their lives. So conflict, disaster and tragedy, progress and development. We have other things as well. Crime story, it's very common one. So any crime can be news, because actually they are very strong news. Whether it is in the crime, there are so many things though there. So can be a road traffic offense, can be corruption, that is crime as well, can be murder, that is crime as well. But more serious crimes, of course, or more unusual crimes, generally they will make bigger news stories than others. So maybe a road traffic offense will not be so strong, no crime story. If you have other things that you can select in this area, then of course the journalist is going to select those stories that are bigger, right? Like a corruption or a murder that can be much bigger than a road traffic offense. So, but they are all included in this area, so in the crime. And there are a lot of stories about, like for this session, you see it a lot. Sometimes the newspaper will dedicate maybe 2 or 3 pages only on this kind of news, no, about crime. Now, let's see here about money. Money is finance. Now, you know that all the newspapers, they have this session as well. So these stories will include, for example, it's a very important field, so there are a lot of things here, but can include the school fees, can include food prices, because we are talking about money. We can, or economic crisis, as you are seeing nowadays. It's everyone is being affected, even that we are talking about the COVID-19, but we talk a lot in the COVID-19 that is a health related issue that we are going to discuss it in the other slide, but how also this this situation and this health issue, the COVID-19, has affected a lot the economy, not only of the UAE, but in all the world, right? So these stories that are about money, so finance, they are very important stories, very strong stories. Then, of course, we have also religion stories. So the journalists can find news about religion. So, for example, I think I mentioned to you before, that depends on the society as well. So here in the UAE, we know that it will come very soon. It will start the Ramadan. So those stories, they are religion. There will be religion stories when you will read those stories about Ramadan, when it will start, about the moon, and about how many time, the prayer time, and when it's the end of the fasting for every day. So for people then to start eating and all of these things, right? So this is one can be, it's included, let's say, in the stories about religion, or when you have news about Eid, so about holidays, these religious holidays. But we may have also stories that are included in this field of the religion of people. Two types of religious news story. First, that are events involving people's religious life. For example, if there is the building of a new mosque, that will be a story that is a religious story, because we are talking about something that is being built and it's for the religion. Second, there are statements also by religious leaders on moral or spiritual affairs. And again, here we are going to see that different societies, then they are going to talk about their own, mostly they will share more news on their religion. So what is the most common in that country than the other religion. So for example, if you live in Italy, I have lived for many years in Italy, and their Pope has a very important role. So whenever he is going to talk in front of other, no, of the public, of the audience, then so many journalists are going to report what he has said. So this is one of the religious stories, so a statement by a religious leader, in this case the Pope, when he shares things on moral and spiritual affairs. That is the idea. Now, let's see other areas also. They are important. Famous people. Famous people. It's a section also in the news that has so many stories. Prominent men and women, they make news, right? What people in the public eye do, the lives they lead, and what they look like are all of the interest. How many stories you read about actors or actresses or singers, no, or this important people, right? You read a lot of story on them, even that maybe it's not something important that they are doing, but because they are very famous, then people or the mass, no, the mass or then the normal people, they have interest on them. They have interest what is happening with what is doing Ronaldo, no, or what is doing whatever, an actor, an important actor, or a singer. So these are newsworthy. So these stories, they are newsworthy. And so they are important stories to show and to report it to the people in the newspaper, in TV, or on the radio. Now, other one, health. Health, I mentioned before a little bit when I talked about now COVID-19. So many people are concerned about or with their health, right? So especially nowadays, especially this year, we have been so much worried about our health. So how many stories, how many times you have read about stories related to this virus, to the COVID-19? Too many maybe, right? Every day there are plenty of stories on this on this area, on this field. Why? Because people are concerned with their health, so they need to know, they are worried, no, they need to know what is going to happen and what is happening. That is the idea. So they are concerned with their health. So there are a lot of stories about maybe other stories not related to COVID-19, but in general about medical research, about diseases, about hospitals, about clinics, and also stories that when you read stories about diet and exercise, that is included in the health, right? So that is included also in the health. Now, another session that looks like it's not so important, but actually it's important, that is the weather. The weather is a very important news. Why? Because the weather can affect our daily routine and of people, and is of the interest when it behaves unusually, with exceptionally high or low temperature, or exceptionally high or low rainfall. Who is not interested on the weather? I think everyone is interested on the weather. If you are planning to go to the office, or you are planning not to go on vacation, to go to Dubai, for example, you want to know, is it going to be a fog today? No, is it going to rain today? I need to know. That's why the weather news, they are very important, because then makes us change our behavior or make us do something else. So if there is a fog, and this morning, no, maybe there was a fog, I'm not aware because I didn't go out. But if there is a fog, then you will not go out. You will decide to not take the car and go to Dubai. Or if it is going to rain, then and you have to go out, then you will plan to take the umbrella with you. So if there is a sandstorm, which happens, in the UAE very often, same thing. You will adapt. You will change something in you. You will not go out, or you will go out, but you will be very careful. You will drive very slowly, and all of these things. So imagine how important it is. This news that does not look as a very important news, but it's actually one of the most important news, most newsworthy, the weather. Everyone is interested to know what is going to happen, how it will be, if it will be sunny tomorrow, because maybe if it's sunny, then I can go to the pool, right? If it's raining, I will not go to the pool. That is the idea. Or when it is the weekend, no, I have to plan my weekend based on the weather as well. No, maybe I will go in the mall and have my AC there, and that will be, I will be protected, let's say. Or I will go outside if it's still fresh and enjoy the weather and enjoy, no, a park or whatever. So I will make different decisions based on the weather. So it's an important field that the journalists, they know that the mass, so again, the audience and the public, they're interesting to know about these things. No? So they give this kind of news that they know people will like, and they will be interested to have. All right, other session, these are, I think, the last two. Entertainment. So stories about a new concert or new movies in the cinema. These are stories that, for example, if it's a new museum or something like that, in the field of art, in the theater, in the music, in the dance or cinema, these are all included in the entertainment. Also, these are very important news, and they are, let's say, in the same level of the weather, because these entertainment stories that are in all the newspapers or in the media, they give information to the audience or to the public of what they want to do. So if I tell them that there will be a concert of Enrique Iglesias tomorrow, in Abu Dhabi, then people will want to know, and then they will decide, this weekend I will do that, so I will go in this concert because I read it on the news that there will be a concert, right? Otherwise, how they will know? Now, how people will know if there is a new movie, if there is a new theater or a new concert or whatever. So they will not know if it's not shared on the news. So this is part is very important, especially here in the UAE, that people all the time when there is the weekend, they want to know what is the new thing happening, a new festival or a new entertainment thing that they can take their children, or they can go by themselves, the adults, and enjoy. Right. So this is another field. The last one, but also this is very important one, the sport, right? Sport, of course, if here they are included so many different kind of sport. So if you like, for example, football, or if you like horse race or camel race, here it's common in the UAE. Or if you like in my case, I like football or tennis. So whatever sport you like, all people would like a kind of sport. So many people participate in the sport, and sometimes they are only spectators. Now, the majority, they are spectators. They all want to know about the result of the sport. So if we are having football, for example, it's almost every day. So you want to know the results of the whatever team that they are playing. You want to know the result. And who will tell you? The news, the newspapers, the TV, the radio. So they will show you the results of the sport. They will tell you stories about, news about sportsmen, so what they are doing, about the sport women, about their achievement, right? So we are talking here about whatever event that is related to sport. I know here in the UAE, there is very famous tennis as well. They have here a lot of people, a lot of spectators, they go there. As I told you, horse race or camel racing, they are very, very famous. So people are very interested to know about it. So the locations and how to buy the ticket and where they will be and when they will be. So these are stories that only the newspapers, the media will share, the journalists will share, right? So these are very interesting things. The last one is about human interest stories. Human interest stories. These are often unusual, and they are interesting aspects of other people's life, which are not particularly significant to all the society, but they are stories that's why they are called human interest stories, because they are stories of maybe very particular. For example, if we have a story of a child that he has to go abroad for a surgery, this is a story of human interest story that everyone will want to know, like what happens to the child, if he survived, if he got the surgery, if he's going to survive. Or there's a story of a man with a collection of 1,000,000 picture postcards. No, that is something unusual. This is human interest story. You see here in the UAE a lot of stories related to people that are now having or winning also money, no, because they have accounts maybe in banks, and they win 1 million or 10 million. No, in the airport, Abu Dhabi airport, there was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was one person who got 10 million. So this kind of stories are called human interest stories. That is not necessarily interest for all people, but they're nice, no? They're interesting stories for the people to know. Okay, so then we go to the last part, which is writing the news, especially when we talk about the lead paragraph. So in this session, or with this part of the session, we will talk about the inverted pyramid style. So how it's written, the news. It's written, if you see it in the picture here, as a pyramid, but inverted pyramid, not the normal one that you have seen. Why? In journalism, this method of starting with your conclusion is called the inverted pyramid style. Sometimes it's referred to as front loading. It means that you should put your most important information first when you are writing the article. So if you see it here in the picture, now you have this inverted pyramid, and you see at the beginning, you start with the most newsworthy information. You don't start with you don't say the last or the most important information at the end. No, this does not happen. It should be at the beginning. So for example, when if there is someone that has died, you will start with it. 2 people died in an accident this morning, right? So you start with that news. You don't start with it was a beautiful day, and then there was an accident, and then 2 people died, right? To say it at the end. This does not happen. You have to say it and start at the beginning. And that's why we are going to talk about the lead paragraph. So the main paragraph of the article. So the one that starts the news, the most newsworthy one. So this is the inverted pyramid style, and all the news, the articles are written this way. So at the beginning, you have this lead paragraph with the most newsworthy information. And now in the other slide, you are going to see how to choose this most newsworthy information that we will include it at the beginning. And we have to answer this question: who, what, when, where, why, and how. We will see it in the next slides. Then later on, other paragraph, you have to deal with, again, important details about that news, how it happened, why it happened. And at the end, we have the last, let's say, paragraph that is considered to be a general information, a background information about that news. Now, the reason why the news is written like this, it's for very important reason. The first one is that people need to know at the beginning, from the beginning, they need to know what happened. Now, what is the main thing? The news. That's why in the lead, we are going to share the most newsworthy news. That is one of the reasons. And the other reason is that now they will not say, if they see from the beginning that that story is not of their interest, so if they read the paragraph, the first paragraph, they will not like it, they will not continue reading the rest of the story. And so that is one of another, let's say, reason why the lead or why we as journalists put the most newsworthy information at the beginning. And the other reason is that if, for example, I have written an article that is very, very long, and the editor will tell me it is very long article, he will not send it back to me so I can cut and no, I can change it, make it shorter, etc. No, he knows that you have written it as in this style, this inverted pyramid style. So he can remove the last paragraph, or if there are 2 paragraphs that are a background information, and nothing will change to that story. Nothing will be lost to that story. So he can make it shorter, but at the same time, he didn't make a lot of effort to change it. See, he didn't change the main things of the story. This is very important. This is very common in journalism, the inverted pyramid style. Now, let's see about the 5 W's and 1 H. Now, that is how So we have the 5 questions. These 5 questions, they are not only, I mean, they don't come out from journalism. They come out because these are the main questions to, let's say, they are considered to complete the information in general. When we are sharing an information, if we answer to all these questions, then that is a complete information that we are sharing. This is the reason why this is used then in journalism. So that is very famous. These 5 W's and 1 H, or and how, are questions whose answers are considered basic in information gathering. According to this principle, a report can only be considered complete if it answers this question started with this interrogative word. So who did that? Who killed that person, for example? What happened, which is the verb? What happened? When it happened? This morning, at 8 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, this afternoon. Where it happened? In Dubai, in this specific street, in the mall, in the city. And then why it happened, so, and how it happened. Now, of course, all the answers, or the answers of all these questions, will not be answered only in the lead paragraph. So it will be, let's say, should be in all the article. At the beginning, at least, we have to put who did what happened, so the event, who committed, let's say, that, who killed that person, what happened, that is the verb, when it happened, where it happened. Then later, because why and how they need more explanation, we can share it in other paragraphs below, right? So that is the idea. Each question should have a factual answer, facts that are necessary to include for a report to be considered complete. Importantly, none of these questions can be answered with a simple yes or no. So you need complete information so you can share it with the readers, listeners, or viewers, right? So let's see here. What is this lead now? Lead is the main paragraph of the article, right? So the lead is the most important part of any news story. This lead has to have some characteristic in order to be effective, in order to be good. Because as I was telling you, if you remember from the beginning of this session, I told you that actually we have the headline, which is the title of the story, and 100 people, 100% of the people, they read the headline. And we know, so a lot of statistics, a lot of surveys have shown that then 80% of the people will read the lead paragraph, so the main paragraph of the article. Then 60% of people will read 2 paragraphs. And 40% of people will read 3 paragraphs. At the end, who will read all the story, all the article, going until the end? Who will read it? We have from our data that 20% of people that start to read the story, they will actually finish it. So 20%. That is the reason why the lead paragraph is the most important part of the article, with the headline, of course, but the lead can show more information. So this lead should be perfect, should be direct, should be simple, grammatically simple, should be attention grabbing, grab the attention of the people. It should contain the most important elements of the story, but should not contain all the story, because as I told you, there are some questions like why and how, they need more explanation. So those will not be answered at the beginning. Normally it should be 1 sentence. So this lead paragraph is only 1 sentence, not more than 20 or maximum 25 words on print. So for the print media, so that means for newspaper or magazine, and fewer for radio television. So sometimes 10 to 12 words for radio and television, since also those are medium that you have also to write. So you will write the news that is on the radio or television. That should be much shorter when we talk about the lead paragraph. How it should be this perfect lead? Now, the lead should be based on the most newsworthy aspect of the story. The lead should be kept short and relevant to the main story. It should be simple grammatically. The lead should make the reader want to read the rest of the story, and also should be appropriate in style to the story. Now we will see each of these aspects. Let's see the first one. Newsworthy. So we said the lead should be based on the most newsworthy aspect of the story. So to write the lead, you must first decide what makes a story news. There may be several things which are newsworthy in that story. If so, you have to decide which is the most newsworthy, and that will be in the lead. If you remember that we mentioned at the beginning, how the journalists, they judge the news, if it is newsworthy or not, like everyone else. Same thing here. Also, when you are going to decide which things are more newsworthy to put it on the lead, the journalists are going to make the same decision like everyone else. So let's imagine you, one simple way, you imagine you, or if you are a journalist, but let's imagine you after finishing all your day in the school, you are tired all the day, and I believe you have so many subjects from 8 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. You have done so many things. Then you go back home, and of course your parents, your mother or father will ask you, so what happened today in the school, and what happened today, how you are going to answer it. You will say one thing, right? So you will say that thing that was more significant for you, that happened that day. And this is the way how the journalists do as well. So they will decide which is the most newsworthy of that news, if there are more things that are important, based on this, what people actually want to know from the beginning, right? So here is the example of a journalist arriving back in the office, and if someone will ask that person what happened, then that quick answer to that question, the first thing that comes into your mind, that is the answer. That should be on the lead, right? Now, the other characteristic of the lead was that should be simple grammatically. This is very important. The golden rule that we are going to see it also later is for the lead is KISS, which is very easy to remember now. Keep it short and simple. That is the idea. So the lead, we said, should not be longer than 20 or maximum 25 words. There is no minimum length. A lead of 12 or 10 words can be also very effective. But you should not, as we said, give a lot of details in the lead. The 6 main questions with the journalist try to answer, who, what, where, when, why, and how, they will not be answered only in the lead. No, all of this will be answered in all the news story. As I told you before, you have to answer at least who, what, where, when in the lead. Then why and how, since they need more explanation, can be also answered later on in the story. So as you see, the format of writing the news, it's not difficult. So once you know and make a very, let's say, not too much experience, some practice with it, then you will be really very fast, and you will write and you will be a journalist very easily if you have those right skills of writing and practicing. And now it's really not complicated, but it's really very beautiful, a very beautiful job. Now, should attract the leader, right? The reader, sorry, since we said this is another characteristic of our lead. The lead is the most important part of the news story because it determines whether the rest of the story will be read. If the lead is dull, the reader will not want to read on. And if it's too complicated, also the reader will give up because he will not understand. That's why, since we talk about the news and the articles on the newspapers, they are meant for everyone. So whatever level of education people have, whatever age they are, then they will be, or they should be able to understand the news from the beginning, from the first time that they are going to read it. So when they see the lead, and if it's too difficult grammatically, then the reader will give up. That will be hard to understand. So they will not go and search for the words and to translate them and understand them if they are difficult words. So make it really very simple, the lead, right? Another, let's say, another characteristic of the lead, that should be appropriate in style. Not all possible leads are appropriate. It would be wrong, for example, to write a humorous lead for a story that, if we are talking or we are writing about a tragedy. Serious news stories, they call for serious leads. For example, if a man was eaten by a pet crocodile he had reared from an egg, it might seem amusing to say, no, and smart maybe also, to say biting the hand that feeds you. But this can be amusing, can be, no, using humor, but this can cause a great hurt to the family and to his friends, and you don't have reason to do that. So apart just for showing that you are clever, you are smart, but this is not appropriate in the style. So be careful, or in case you are going to study mass communication, be careful in this point as well, that the lead or the article should be appropriate in style as well. The golden rules for writing the lead. So here you are going to see some examples. I think I will go a little bit faster with this because I want to give you time as well to answer that lead exercise that I chose for you. So the golden rules for writing the leads are KISS, so keep it short and simple. Active voice, we will see example for each of this. The fact first, up to date, no quotes, and at the end, a checklist. So let's see the golden rule. KISS, keep it short and simple. You will overload your sentence and make instant understanding difficult if you include unnecessary details which can be explained more fully later in the story. So this is example. The following example, you will see that a general description of the person in the lead followed by the full name and title in the second paragraph works much better. So as you see here, we have the wrong version and the right version. And now, which one will be easier to understand? Let's see the wrong first. Mr. McWam, president of the Port Moresby Waterside Workers Union, yesterday condemned politician who tried to interfere in labor dispute. As you see here, this is written in one paragraph, in one sentence. Now, here we have started in the wrong version. We have started with the full name of the person and even with his title. And then we have read, or we have written, the news. Now, the right version works much better if we say what is the news and then we say who said that news. A Port Moresby Union leader, so we don't write the full name and his title here, yesterday condemned politician who tried to interfere in labor dispute. Then in the second paragraph, Mr. McWamp, president of the Port Moresby Waterside Workers Union, said, etc., etc. So this works much better. It's easier for people to understand, not the news. Active voice. Active voice means the verb. The verb should be in active voice. So use active voice wherever it's possible. An active voice sentence uses a simple grammatical structure of subject, like in English, for example, there is a subject, verb, and object. So if we have a sentence, the man hit the table, in this sentence, we are using the active voice. So we know the man, what is doing, not to the table, right? Now the opposite is the table was hit by the man. This is when we are using the passive voice. So it's more difficult for people to understand who did what. So that's why it's preferable for the journalists to use as much as they can the active voice. Let's go to the other one. So here we have the example of the active and the passive. So the wrong version. 3 Japanese tourists were attacked by angry villagers in Western Province yesterday. So here we have were attacked by. So that is in passive voice. If we have in the right version, angry villagers attacked 3 Japanese tourists in Western Province yesterday. So here in the first, so in the right version, immediately the readers, they are going to understand what happened, who did what, no? So the angry villagers attacked the 3 Japanese tourists. While in the wrong versions, they have to understand first, they have to read it very carefully to understand that no, the 3 Japanese tourists were attacked. They didn't attack, they were attacked by. So that's why when it's possible to use the active voice. Another important thing for the lead is to write the fact first. Don't think that because an important person says something important, then his name should come first. Let the facts come first in the lead. So also this a little bit we mentioned in the first characteristic, like to not mention the name and full name and the title of the person, right? Because facts are more important. So here we have the wrong version. The Minister for Forests, Mr. Jacob DY, announced at a special meeting of the National Executive Council held yesterday to consider various submissions by different companies for the development of the Vanimo timber area, had decided that 2 overseas companies would be invited individually to negotiate the terms for an agreement to develop the resource. It's very hard not to read it because there is one sentence and it's so long. And now, and we started here, as you see, with the person and what he announced. While since the announcement is more important, the fact is more important than the name of the person, we still are going to share the name, but not from the beginning. Right version, 2 overseas companies will negotiate with the government to develop the important Vanimo timber area. So we have the news here. Then later on, the Forest Minister, Mr. Jacob DY, said yesterday that various submissions by different companies had been considered by the National Executive Council. So if you see it this way, in the right version, you understand that people, the readers, they are going to understand this news much easily than if you see it in this wrong version. Now it's more complicated for people to understand it. Now let's see the other characteristic, most newsworthy. Always begin your lead with your most newsworthy key point, even though you may include another key point in the lead, what is called a subordinate clause. And the subordinate clause, I'm sure that you are also studying English, and they are these words, they start, or this part of the sentence, they start with while or as, although, despite. So don't start the sentence in the lead with one of these words. So look the wrong version because it's more complicated to understand. The wrong version, while the Prime Minister was attending a concert last night, thieves broke into his official residence. So you are starting with while he was attending a concert last night. So that is the subordinate clause. Start with the main clause. So here the right version, thieves broke into Prime Minister's official residence last night. This is the news that the thieves broke into his office while he was attending a concert. So then, of course, you can use it, but you can use that subordinate clause later, after, not to start the sentence with it. So that was an example. Up to date, that means to be fresh. Keep the story fresh. Remember that one of our 4 criteria, or 5, if you consider them separately interesting and significant, is it new? One way in which the reader judges the newness or otherwise of a sentence is in the verb sentence. So up to date means that news should be in the present tense or in the future tense, not in the past tense, right? Wherever possible, if it's possible, use the present or the future tense in your lead. Now we are going to see an example with that. Now in the following example, we focus on real news, which is in the future, the visit of Prince Charles, rather than the announcement which happened last night. So something that he announced it last time that he's going to do or have this visit in this country. So let's start with the wrong version. It was announced in Funafuti last night that Prince Charles would visit Tuvalu in August. So now we have it was announced last night, and then he would visit. It's more complicated when we have the verb in the past. Now, this also, okay, so let's see the right version. Prince Charles will visit Tuvalu in August. Since it was announced that he is going to visit this country in August, then why not to say that he will visit that country in August, instead of writing that was announced yesterday, etc. So this also will allow us to use the simple future tense will instead of would. That is more complicated. So writing the news, it's not difficult. Should be understandable by everyone, whatever, again, level of education or age of the person that is reading the news. Everyone has a right to be informed. No quotes in the news. This is another important characteristic of the lead. in the lead we are talking, not in the all the story. The quotes actually are interesting to have in the articles, in the story, but not too many. Can be two quotes, can be really give a sense of freshness of that story, now make it feel alive, that story, when we have one or two quotes. But not to start with it, not to start on the lead paragraph. So do not begin a new story with the quotes. The value of the quote is dependent entirely on the speaker. For that reason, it's important to know who is speaking before we know what is said. So let's see the wrong version. Income tax will rise by 7% when I present my budget in January. This is a quote, so you see it. Said the finance minister, Mrs. Bernadette Kina, or Miss Bernadette Kina, at a meeting in Lai yesterday. So we have here, we are starting with a quote. Why? When you can use it, since she said it and she is the finance minister, so you can write it, income tax is to rise by 7% in January, because it's the finance minister. So we don't have doubt on his words, right, that is going to happen. So this is interesting as well. So no quotes on the lead. Then the last one is the checklist. Also, almost I finished with this presentation. The checklist. So once you have written the lead, then you should read it again carefully, asking yourself this question: is this that I'm putting on the lead the most youth-worthy key point of the story? Is it short and is it simple grammatically? If it's more than 20 words, you try to cut it down, make it shorter, cut out maybe repetitions that are unnecessary, no, and other unnecessary words. Is it written in the active voice? If not, should you rewrite it in the active voice? Can you do that? Have you put the facts first in the sentence and then the full name and the title of the person? Is it up to date? That means the verb is in the correct tense, so present or future. Have you avoided quotes? If you have started with a quote, maybe you can rewrite it in a reported speech. So it's very rare for journalists to get exactly the right lead on the first attempt, even after years maybe of experience. Some leads, they have to be rewritten several times before they achieve the correct length, to have the balance and to have that clarity that is necessary now for the lead. Never be satisfied with your first attempt, however good. Always you have to ask, how can it be better, no? Or can it be better? And then you can change it. Now, after this is what I'm going to ask you again. So please go again to this AHA slides now for F3EC and check this lead exercise. Give me your input here. You have a few seconds, 1 minute, but anyway, we can increase it maybe. So we have this lead exercise. There is information and you need to write the lead in one sentence. So 20 words or 25 words maximum. A school bus ran off City Road in Suva, narrowly missed an electricity pole, and came to rest in a garden. Most of the bus windows, they were smashed. There were more than 30 children on the bus. They were going to Martyr School. It was a 36-seater bus. All the children escaped serious injury. Some of them jumped out of the bus and grazed themselves. Eyewitnesses said the children were helpless from the bus, screaming and shouting, and in a state of panic. This happened this morning. I don't know. Okay, so I gave you more time, I think, right? So please try to write your input. You have to write one sentence now showing me if you have understood the lead. So what, like this is an information. Now you have to write one sentence that what you are going to see at the beginning of an article. So which one is the news? So remember the question, who, what, when, where, and then you don't need why and how, because that will be written, let's say, in another version later on in other paragraphs. Just the lead paragraph. So just the one sentence that you think is the news. So who, what happened, where it happened, when it happened. Please write the complete sentence, not only this. Complete sentence, please. Maybe I will repeat this again. I have one bus accident, injured many. Sorry. Off. No, no, no. I didn't want to give you the answer immediately. That was a mistake. I wanted to put it more in the white side. Maybe you saw it a little bit, but that is one sentence. You saw the answer that I wanted to show it to you after. So think about which is the news. Now, which is the most important thing here that you are going to put it at the beginning. So the most newsworthy. Think about it. We still have 3 minutes left to finish this session. I hope that you enjoyed it. I see there are 18 participants. Is there anyone else who wants to add? Okay, we have another one. All right, that is good. Okay, so more than 30 children survived a bus crash, I think this morning. Okay, so let's see then, that is good. That is very closer to the reality. So more than 30 children escaped serious injury when a school bus crashed in Suva today. So we have who, in this case, more than 30 children, and then what is escaped serious injury when today, or also when a school bus crashed, so today, and where in Suva, right? So you understand that we answered the question of who, what, when, where. Then this is the lead. Now very simple, and people will understand it much easier, the news. Later on, then you say, so more about it. So how it happened, this accident, and why it happened, this accident. So as you can understand, now there are a lot of more words that you have to use to answer those two questions, but you already answered here. So I hope that you enjoyed this session. So that was the last one. Here we have questions. Also, you have question for me, because this is from AHA slides again, or I can see here question and answer. Why media sometimes put fake news or more than actual news just for their channel ratings? I believe that you are talking about the online, in the social media, they may use that. Maybe not fake news, maybe for the titles, like so they can have the clicks. Yes, this is not good journalism, of course. If they are journalists, they use the headlines or the links, promising something on that link, that there is a news, like for example, you are going to see now the I don't know, the whatever news it is, and that you have expectation to open it, then you click on it and then you don't see it. That is not good journalism. No, that is very easy answer. So those journalists that they are writing fake news in order to have more clicks, so then to have more money, because more clicks online means more money, then of course that is bad journalism. They are not good journalists, those. All right, if there is any other question, what are the ways to control the bloggers posting fake news? Well, unfortunately, they are not, but there are ways of how to, like, for example, there are a lot of maybe workshops, or from some media that shows which are the most accurate, to help people understand which are the most accurate websites. So you have to understand that there are some websites that maybe are not good one, like some blogs that are not accurate. So you should ignore all the news that are coming from there. So check the news from accurate website. Like if it's something that is written from the, let's say the national that is on the UAE, then of course that is accurate news. It's something that has gone through a lot of gatekeepers and editors before being published. But if there are blogs that are, it's clear now how many viewers they have, if they are new and if they don't have accurate information, you can understand it easily, and that will be fake news. So that will be not a good blogger. You cannot stop them, but what you can do is ignore the news that are there. That is a very nice question. So thank you. Those both questions, they were really very nice. So only check those websites that are accurate, like main newspapers or TV channels that are known, not something that is not known. I know there are so many websites that are sharing fake news to have more advertisement and to have more clicks. How can we know this news is out of the box? What do you mean it's out of the box? I cannot understand. I don't understand this question, out of the box. Maybe you can clarify a little bit. That is unusual. As we said, that we do the judgment, the journalists, they judge the news like anyone else. You understand that something is not happening every day. No, it's and especially when I show to you all the fields that where the journalists, they find the news, like the crime, like the conflicts, sport, or all of these things, that you understand that we have something that is new, something is unusual. That means does not happen often, does not happen every day. It's something not common. You understand it if it's something not common. Is there any other question? I don't know here in the chat. In the chat there are maybe some questions. Good evening. Yes, good evening. The news on the UAE's Mars mission, Al-Amal, is under which category? Well, this news, of course, follows, it's not, category you mean. It's interesting because imagine that this kind of news is something so like the question of that, the student that asked before, how to understand that it's something unusual. You understand that this news now of the UAE's Mars mission is totally unusual, It's something that does not happen every day. So yes, it can be in the, it's not in the crime for sure, can be human interest story, but no, can be also in the progress and development, can be in that area, in that category, if it's you want a specific one. Development, right? To reach, to go to the Mars, it doesn't happen every day, and you need a very important technology to reach. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fatima. That is a nice question as well. Thank you. Is there any other question? Thank you to all who participated. I'm sure that this will be also recorded, so maybe we can share it later on with others that maybe lost the opportunity to follow this session. I know that Thursday, it's not an easy day. A lot of people, they want to relax, but I hope that you enjoy it as well. I hope that you enjoy it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Fatima. Thank you. All right, so thank you, everyone. We have to finish now the session. I hope that you enjoyed. It was a little bit long, but I really hope that you understood and you learned something, and then you like the mass communication. So thank you very much for listening to this session. Goodbye.